Hey everybody, welcome to this month's Toggle session with F9 Collective. This month's guest is Emmy Award winning motion designer Kyle Hamrick. Before we get started, I want to point out that today's Toggle consists of three parts. In the first part, Kyle talks about different tips to make your workflow in After Effects more efficient. He'll share some very useful hotkeys and shortcuts that you can use daily. In the second part, he breaks down how text animations work and how we can easily manipulate them to however we want. And finally, we talk about the ever-shifting motion design industry. We'll have timestamps in the description so you can come back and watch them again if you miss any. So don't be shy, come say hi.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks so much for having me. This is really cool to be able to, talk to all of you that are literally on the other side of the world. So as my introduction just said, I don't know, I've been doing this stuff for a long time. I think I've been doing motion design sort of things since about 2003. So I don't know. Are we to the point where there are, probably people in college now learning about it that were born around that time. So that doesn't make me feel old at all. So as Vishal said, I'm in Kansas City, which is right in the middle of the US, which is, not like, it's not New York or LA. But there's plenty going on here, and there always kind of has been enough for me. And especially like kind of earlier on, before motion design, motion graphics then was really even as much of a thing. Been sort of interesting, like being in a smaller market and figuring things out. Because I've been freelancing for over half, probably close to 2/3 of my career at this point. So very much like figuring things out as I went, and a lot of the online communities that exist now, like this beautiful one that I'm getting to experience right now, is, they didn't exist back in the early to mid 2000s. So it was a lot of figuring everything out for yourself, and a lot of like making mistakes and learning along the way. So I have a little presentation of some of my favorite like After Effects efficiency tips that I'm going to go through here, but I'm obviously going to be open for whatever kinds of questions or conversation that we want to have about literally anything that I do, or even things I don't do. I don't know. Ask me whatever you want. I just won't have good answers for all of them. But let's see. So, let me bring on my screen here, and I'll sort of start being all official, because as you can see, I'm extremely official and businesslike here. I put on a collar and everything. All right, looks like we probably got my screen. Yeah, okay. So I made this very official bio slide that I definitely didn't just repurpose from a presentation that I've given before. I'll give you my very first tip right here, which is a little hotkey that most of you probably will never care about, but at least if you're on Windows and you want to get rid of this little top bar right here so that you have just a little bit more screen space, you can hit Control and is it the slash or the backslash? I always mix them up, but it's the one that's between Enter and Backspace on my keyboard, and that hides that little top bar, so you get just a little bit more. So good for presenting. I wish you could get rid of the white bar in general, but you can't. So just in case, Vishal has assured me repeatedly that all of you know who I am and that I'm just the most popular person ever. But I usually imagine that most people do not know who I am. And so here's a very informational screen. I'm Kyle. I do motion design. I also do video editing, have for a very long time. I did that before I got into motion and After Effects and all that. I've decided to start putting creative and technical director on my title because I sort of do some of that too. I'm an Adobe certified instructor. I'm an Adobe community expert. I give a lot of presentations at conferences like NAB and Adobe Max and a variety of other smaller conferences. If you're not already following me, you can follow me on the Twitter or X, whatever, on Instagram, and of course LinkedIn, but that's longer enough that it would be weird to put here. So you can find it if you want. And I do indeed do a show called Motion Design Hotline with my good friend Evan Abrams. We're on every Monday, except this coming Monday because that's a holiday here in the US. So we're skipping that. And if you go to motiondesignhotline.com, you can see something like 80 hours of us talking about various motion design things. You can watch all the back episodes and get most of the project files and stuff. So yeah, that super fun to do. So like I said, I'm going to dive in and do some of my favorite After Effects efficiency tips. One thing that I have really honed from doing this for so long is being really fast and really efficient. And so I've learned all these little tricks that I use to be fast. And I will quickly make the point that, of course, if you happen to also be very fast, or you learn, some of these tricks make you a little faster. If you're billing hourly, you're kind of shorting yourself. So be mindful about that. We can talk about rates and stuff later if you want. I don't know how helpful I'll be since it's a entirely different economy that I don't live in, but yeah, just a point to make. If you're billing project rates and you're super efficient, then you're doing great for yourself. But yeah, so one of my biggest things, and I think this comes from being an editor first, is that I use other apps a lot before I just dive into After Effects. There's definitely times when you can just dive in and mess around, but if you're doing a real project, you need to make sure that you're, using references and script and design and storyboards and all that stuff. And I'm sure that most of you know this. And here's another really big thing. You want to make sure that you get approvals at every single stage of this, right? Because if you don't, then you are doing a bunch of work unnecessarily. I hope this emphasis, I see it's making some of you laugh. So good. Mission accomplished. One of the, and again, storyboards, you don't have to be able to draw well. This is literally a project I did for Adobe, and, this is no masterpiece here. So, and literally a big chunk of it is just kind of like, we'll figure this out. So that can be okay, but you can take stuff like this and then you can put it into Premiere in my case, and you can work out the timing and all that before you ever animate a single thing. Also, did you know that you can use After Effects like PowerPoint? I wouldn't recommend that, but it works for some things. So I am someone that makes use of a lot of apps, a lot of Adobe apps specifically, but plenty of other ones too. And I'm a big proponent of knowing what the right tool is for the job. Like if you're doing an After Effects project and you have an image that you need to cut something out, what do? Do you spend forever doing it with a mask tool, or do you open Photoshop right now, probably literally click one button and then you're done. You go back to After Effects, right? So apply that same logic to other things. I may be very near completion of a Premiere-based course for motion designers that will live on one of our favorite platforms that rhymes with cool of potion. So that may be where some of this is coming from. But, again, I'm sure most of you know this, but don't use After Effects as a video editor, people. I'm active on the After Effects Reddit. This is the answer to probably half the questions that get put on there. Just don't do it, okay? It's not what it's built for. Sorry, Francis. So I actually start most of my motion design projects in Premiere. And yes, this is a way that I'm much more efficient in After Effects, okay? So do your editing tasks in an editing app. Do all your audio work in there, okay? Import the storyboards, whatever. I'm going to show you things of this. I want to go faster. So this is like how I work in Premiere. I will take all the storyboards from my designer and I do all this in Premiere. This is my scratch VO. This is just me recording stuff and me roughing out some music to find a beat, right? And find which track sounds good. And then after that, I swap in the real VO. And then some of these are like rough animated. Some of these are still just those stills. But again, you're working through the timing. So you're kind of using Premiere like your home base for the whole project. And by the way, I'll do another little emphasis gag here. If you're not using Remix in Premiere, you 100% should be. It's like a magical music editor for you. It's not going to be perfect every time, but I really love it at this kind of like working stage, because you can use that to get the track. Like you can literally just drag the track to be the right length, and it gets pretty close as is possible with that beat and all that. And most of the time I will come back and edit it for real afterwards, but it's really great for just getting those initial cuts. And then I'm also really big on image sequences. You export those from After Effects and drop them right back into Premiere. And that way, as you're working, now you just have this one thing, because of course we all know that a video file is what? Just a whole bunch of images packed into one file. So an image sequence is pretty much just the same thing. I will also take this time to make the point. I am using EXRs here, which is my go-to, because PNGs as a compressed format are much slower to work with. So you shouldn't work with PNGs or MP4s or MP3s or anything like that in either Premiere or After Effects, because they're compressed, and every frame that you're asking the app to show you is something that has to uncompress to be able to show you. So use more professional formats. They'll take up a lot more hard drive space, but you'll work a lot faster. And that so really then, beautiful. sorry. Once you've got this on your timeline, then any updates you make are still just kind of, you're replacing some of those frames. So you can essentially be making little patches as you go, as you're rendering those portions out from After Effects. And then like you never have to kind of touch that again, because it just sort of updates itself if you're overwriting the files. Then, you know, you work through your final audio mix, and then you're done. But here I haven't even gotten into actual After Effects stuff yet, and I've been yapping for almost 10 minutes already. Again, all of you know this, but organize your stuff, right? Do you want this project or this project if you get handed off something from someone else? We all know. And same thing here. Keep your timeline tidy, name your layers, all that. I really like to go by the philosophy of trying to organize your projects like someone else will have to finish them. Because I have had this happen to me in both directions. Like when I had an emergency come up, when someone else had an emergency come up. And a lot of times that someone might be you 2 years from now when you have to open up your own project. And if you were unkind to yourself, you'll have all kinds of unkind things to say. If you are like me and you have your own little sort of folder format that you like to use, you can actually save as an After Effects template project right up in here. They moved it. I'll need to update that. Maybe it's just under the save as dialog. It is. There we go. So you can save as a template project, and then every time you open After Effects and create a new project, you could actually have it open that template project. So if you have a really cool folder format that you like to use, do that. And of course, you all know where all the collect files and everything is. Make sure you collect your stuff, clean up all that stuff, reduce project. I'm going to move faster. Okay. Throw a couple hotkeys, my favorite hotkeys at you real quick. I assume everyone knows you for revealing keyframes, and UU for anything changed from its default. But, and I assume you all know E to reveal any effects, and EE to reveal any expressions. But did you know that especially on dense layers like text layers and shape layers, if you control or command on a Mac, click this twirly right here, it will open literally everything. So you don't have to go click, 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 click to open it all up. And you're like, yes, Kyle, but now I have this giant list that I have to scroll through. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I already am ready for that little critique. So let's say that I actually only want to see this property and this property. I'm control selecting these to select multiple here. Let's see, those are the properties that I want to do. So if I hit SS, show selected, and now it only shows those things, so you can see exactly what you want. Of course, we're all using the newish properties panel, which does a lot of this too, but not everything, and it's not as selective there. If you want to get rid of one of these, you can just Shift Alt or Shift Option, click on those and hides it. And then if you're working and you accidentally close this and you go, oh no, my beautiful selections, well, you can actually Shift click on that layer twirly and it opens it right back up. And one of those things that's hiding in plain sight that a lot of people never use, which is this right here, this search bar right here. So if you ever need to find certain properties on one layer, all layers, use the search bar. course, it's up here as well, and in effects and presets for all of those. So make use of those. Don't waste your time. How many of you use the mini flowchart? I'm going to raise my own hand because, yeah, good. Some. I'm a big fan of this one, especially if you're using a lot of pre-comps, which I do when it makes sense. And in any composition, you can hit tab and open up a mini flowchart. This one doesn't look like much, but if I go into this BG pre-comp here and I hit it, you'll see all of the pre-comps that this lives in. And now this is a much easier list to navigate. I like the reactions to that. I am a huge fan of using markers. So this is a really big efficiency thing for me. Obviously, you can use these just to, make little notes to yourself or mark frames that you want to come back to. And of course, to make duration markers, you can just drag from the left, Alt drag if it's just a single frame already. You can make little notes. I love to color code them, and like red, green, yellow for like notes and their status and stuff, so that I don't have to remember things. And since I know this comes up a lot, you can make all of the numbered markers on the top of your timeline. I use those a lot to jump around. But a couple years ago, 1, 2, 3 mysteriously vanished, and that's because they gave them over to some of the new 3D features. So if you want 1, 2, 3, like I do, you can go to Preferences 3D, and there's a little checkbox in here so that you can keep 1, 2, 3. If you uncheck this, you can keep those for your markers. Let's see. A couple more things. I am a huge fan of using effect masks, and this is a very sort of hidden feature, but this for me is, I'm a crazy person, and I love seeing how much stuff I can put on a single layer. It's a good creative challenge sometimes, but it also means anything you can put on one layer, you can make into a preset for yourself, and then you can easily reuse it. So effect masks in particular is something that really helps open that up. I just have this, standard fill effect here. And if you create a mask on that layer now, you're like, well, yeah, you're masking off part of the layer. But every single effect, except some of the audio only ones, have this compositing options twirly right here. And if you open this up, you can hit this plus and it will take a mask from the layer so that it's now applying to one of the effects instead of the layer. And of course, you can still feather that and all that. So you can do a ton of compositing and coloring and stuff like that directly on a layer without needing to do a bunch of masking and matting and, well, matting. They're obviously doing masking. And of course, you could animate these masks as well if that's useful to you. But this is a great way to, create gradients and things like that all there. You know what? Let me show these exporting tips because this feels like a thing that's good. Obviously, we all have to export our projects every time, right? Or otherwise, you're the only one that can see them. So just a couple other like hidden tricks in the render queue. So I assume most of you know you've got all of these. When you send something to the render queue, I'll go ahead and just send this one. Of course, you have your output module and you've got all these templates here. You can, of course, make your own right here. So if you have something that you're needing to make regularly, just make yourself a template with whatever settings you need and save it with a very meaningful name like and then you can, call on that anytime. How many of you are using render tokens right here? You have this little drop down. And so every time that you render something, you could have the date and time tacked onto the end, or the frame range, or the dimensions, or anything like that. Or if you want to make your own custom render tokens, just go to custom. And there's a whole list of stuff. So you can just kind of set this up. It kind of creates a little code thing right here. But look at all these that you could do. And so again, you could kind of add that to this little list if you want to create your own custom render tokens that happen every time you render something. And that's pretty cool, of course. But so let's say, I want to render stuff from all these comps. Well, as long as I have set up where one render thing is going to go, did you know that you can actually just drag a bunch of compositions directly into your render queue? And now they'll all be there. They'll all go to the same place that first one was pointed. And of course, with all of them selected, you can then set them all to one preset at once. I assume most of you knew that. Your faces tell me that many of you did. And that's good. But did you know that you could take something that you have rendered previously, and if you grab the word output module and drag it back into the project panel, well, I have to pick the one that I actually didn't move. I think it's this one. Well, in theory, let me just do a quick render of this. So I'm going to just render that one real quick. It's just a one frame PNG. Thanks, autosave. This is totally the time I wanted that. Now that you've rendered the thing, you can actually just grab the word output module and drag it directly into your project panel. So you don't even have to go looking for the thing. Let's see. GIF gun's great if you need to do GIFs, which I like them sometimes. I already talked about don't do PNGs because those are slow. I don't know. Do you want me to talk about essential properties and or text animators, or do you want to open things up? I feel like I've been yapping for long enough already, so it's up to you guys.
I think I think text animators is your thing.
Kind of is, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe before we can go there, I just want to ask: is you had mentioned remix in Premiere Pro?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is it the same one in Audition?
Yes. So it was only an Audition for a couple years, and then they finally put it in Premiere. And at first, it was only for like 30, 60, 90. But now in Premiere, as of last year, I want to say, you get the exact full functionality that you had in Audition, where you can drag it to any length and it will cut it for you. And you even get some controls about like, basically, you don't get a lot, but you get a slider or two that you can kind of the equivalent of like changing the random seed, or like telling it how much variation you want in the song. So you can kind of like, it's kind of a black box, but you can goose it a little bit to get different results.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I mean, it's it's an awesome feature, but I never knew that remix had come to Premiere Pro.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Does anybody else have anything to ask?
Sounds like, do you want me to do a little bit of text animator stuff then?
Yeah, I mean, I know that's your thing, and that was one of the first meetings I saw of you work, and I was sort of completely blown away by how you just made everything, different patterns and all. So yeah. Okay.
Cool. Well, I'll try to be mindful of my time, but just cut me off. I could literally talk about text animators for like 2 hours. So here's another little power tip. When you have a bunch of compositions open and you're annoyed by them, don't sit here and click each one. You can actually just click. If there's just one you want to keep, you can click on your little, I call it a hamburger menu, your little 3 lines menu there, and close other timeline panels, and boop, now all of them are closed. Okay, text animators. Look, so I have this one right here, which is, if I'm explaining this to people who have absolutely no idea what they're doing. And I do want to recommend the presets, even to you folks, especially some of you who've been using After Effects for a long time, because I think most of us know that the text animator presets were not great. Some of them looked pretty goofy, but I would encourage you to get back in here and look at some of the newer ones. They added a bunch about a year and a half ago, and then they actually, a bunch more just went into beta, so they'll be in the full version pretty soon. But there are some really great ones in here, and a lot of these that are very built to be very responsive. So like Slide In from Comp Edge, I believe Jake Bartlett built this one, but just to kind of quickly demonstrate, if you see one of them come in and it has a bunch of expression controls to make things easier, that's probably one of the newer ones. And it doesn't look great just at its default for this thing, But I love these because, like I said, they're built to be comp responsive. And so in this case, I could just tell it to come from the bottom. You want it to be by word, character. I mean, this is all just linked to the stuff in the text animator, which I'll go into in a second. But, with literally, applying one thing and then one click, I've got this right here, which is, pretty close to being useful for a lot of stuff. And part of being efficient is knowing when presets are the right solution. Excuse me. I'm a big fan of making a lot of my own text presets too. So, if you have one of these that you like and you want to give yourself some more controls or make it look a little better, do that. So let's quickly dive in and talk about how the text animator actually works, because this is a thing that's pretty mysterious for a lot of folks, and apparently a thing that I figured out at some point, and people were excited about it. So the thing about the text animator is you have to think about it being totally different from everything else in After Effects, which is kind of weird. Not everything. It's actually very similar to shape layers, which I also love. I guess it's how my brain works. But if you are also a Cinema 4D user, effectors, this is the kind of mentality you want to have for the text animator. You are taking the characters that you have, and they have a default value. You're going to change that default value to something else, and then you're going to define how that happens. And that's what the text animators do. So if I were to animate position, and just because I'm still trying to plug properties panel for a lot of folks, you can add animators over here in the properties panel, but that's where it ends. That's all you can do. I don't think I would want all of it over here. That'd be too much. So now I've added this position property, and I'm going to set that to something about -300 on Y. Okay. And so it changed all of them because I've changed all of these from their default value to this new value that I've given them. And if you want to change how that happens, that's where the selectors come in. You have range selectors, wiggly selectors, and expression selectors. And so what you're going to do is use this. I can change this start value and end value. And you can literally see on screen, this is my start value and this is my end value. And I'm pushing this change into this line of characters or words or lines, depending on how you want to break it down. But this is how this works, okay? And then right now, if you look at this, you're like, oh, it kind of looks like a rectangle is sort of the way that you're changing it. Well, yep. If you open up this advanced property, you're going to get that. But let me quickly visit offset, which I forgot about. So I have this range right now that I have defined. This is what's being changed, and everything else is at its default, right? So if I take this offset value and I scrub that, I'm now offsetting that change through the line of text, okay? And so honestly, I would say even if I stopped here, if you just make yourself a line of periods or some other generic character like this and play around with everything, it's really going to help you wrap your brain around how this works. Let's quickly go into advanced because this is where the real magic is, okay? The first thing I'm going to do is change my units from percentage to index, because this means instead of 0 to 100, which is really useful for a lot of things, but if I want to be precise, I like index, because then I'm actually saying 0, 1, 2, 3. That third character starts at 0 because most things do. That's just how it works. And then through the 11th character, that's where my range is here, okay? And we already decided this is based on characters. That's default. You can do words or lines if you want. And then you do get a mode right here. So this is just like the mode for masks. You can think of it the same way. I could set this to be subtracting. So now it's just the inverse of what I made, right? So the range I defined is what's affected and is the default, and the other things are what's affected. You have these other modes, but they really only come into play when you start using multiple range selectors, which you can, of course, do, and I will in a second. Amount here, this animates the whole thing, that whole changed portion from 0 to 100, but it can also go negative. So you can do a lot of really neat stuff there, okay? And then the shape right here is what I was hinting at a minute ago. By default, you're pushing a square shape through your line of characters to make that change. But when you start changing these is when you get a lot of power. So if I set this to triangle, for example, now I'm pushing a triangle of that change through my line of characters. And if I wanted to offset that, there you go. Now I'm sort of pushing that through here. And of course, like this all gets a little more abstract when you're pushing, opacity through your line of characters, but this is what's going on. You have a round, you have a smooth, but my favorites are the ramps. So ramp up here, you're starting at your default, and then over the range that you've defined, you're ramping from that default to the changed value. And just to kind of showcase this more, I'm going to add one more property. I'll add scale and scale that up. And so these characters, that same range, that same way that I'm changing is going to apply to all of these. I could also add maybe a fill color here. And so you'll see no matter what you add to this animator, you're creating one thing that controls the change from its default state to whatever state you give it. And so this is kind of the secret sauce of, making better text animations, but also using this for all kinds of weird, wacky stuff that you want to create. I don't know, whatever. I have a whole couple tutorials of using this for more graphic purposes, because as you might gather from this, these are basically like particles, except you can actually control them. So let's see, what else do I want to do? You do have easing here. And so this kind of works like easing in the graph editor. It's just, again, can be visual if you're using it like this, or think of it as like easing in or out of that change. Just to kind of take this one step further, I'll go ahead and just use this example. You can create a path that your text layer lives on. And of course, if you want text to follow a curve or something, this is how you do it. But if you want to use this in a more abstract way, once you draw a path on here, then you can just apply your text to that path. And so now the default value of these is along the path, and then that position change I created is moving them away from the path. And so you can, this is how you get a tapered stroke in After Effects before they added it into shape layers, which I'm going to claim at least partial credit for, because part of my old school text animator thing that I did was creating a tapered stroke in After Effects using this kind of mentality here.
I think it was long overdue.
What's that?
It was long overdue getting a tapered stroke.
Yeah. Let me just show one more thing here. I feel like I'm taking up a lot of time. Let's just animate position again here, and I'll just do some vertical. I'm a big fan of the wiggly selector. Oops, there we go. So if you want to add selector, wiggly is here if you want to just get wacky with it. And obviously this is not super useful, in everyday stuff, but this is one of those things that if you dial it in a little bit, it won't look so goofy. To step back to the thing I was working with a minute ago, if you want something to say, follow a path, and like anytime I need dots or squares or simple shapes like this to be mostly on a path but have some organic quality, well, you could add a selector, add a wiggly selector. And in this case, they're going to be taking all of those properties, which is probably a little much, but you can start adjusting things right here. And so I could be changing those, quote particles, even though they're sort of adhering to my path like that. In this case, that looks pretty stupid, but you can come in here to your wiggly selector and start maybe turn off the wiggles per second, turn off the correlation, and let's turn this way down to just like, 4 here. And instead of actually letting this wiggle itself by wiggles per second, I could maybe animate one of these phases right here. Okay, and that's all right, but maybe I'll use a little expression like posterize time 2, and then we'll just feed this some random between 0 and 500 here. And so this is a great way to give yourself like a nice little stop motion kind of poppy vibe here. but very controllable because you could just change the frames per second of your jump right there. And it's a pretty easy thing. And then, of course, if this were something I wanted to use again, I could name my animator as like stop motion pop. And then I could come up to animation, save animation preset, name it, and now I never have to build it again because it's right there for me.
I think I think you're tired from monologuing.
I mean, I do this all the time, and I'm hyped about text animators. I literally will keep talking about this for as long as you want me to, but I assume some folks have some questions for me.
I think one of the big questions that everybody has is what it takes to be a Emmy Award winning motion designer.
Luck. So in my case, this was the Emmy, and just to be clear, this is a regional Emmy. Like I wasn't competing against Game of Thrones or anything like that. But there are like 4 regions across the US, and so these are for like things that air on TV but aren't national or things like that. And so this was actually a client project that was like a documentary about this entrepreneurial fellowship organization. And so I worked very closely with the person that runs that organization, and we shot this thing with actually an old college friend of mine, like coincidentally worked out. So it looks very nice. We crafted a really nice story out of it because both, the person in charge of the organization knows all of their stories very well. And then I made it look good. So apparently somebody thought it was good, and then I ended up with this thing back there on my shelf. It's a cool paperweight. I don't know. Make good stuff, and eventually people will recognize it. But also awards like this, like, I mean, to a certain extent, things like this. This other thing back here is a telly, and it's kind of the same. That's like an advertising award. Ultimately, like, if you pay to enter your things in it, you will have a chance at winning. And so, there's a little bit of that. I mean, obviously on a high level, Oscars and Emmys and stuff like that. Yeah, amazing. And don't get me wrong, I'm very happy to have some awards that help prove that I know what I'm doing. But, I also, I don't know, I guess to kind of go to one of my other things that I say a lot, like, what I think is a lot more important is using these skills that we have to do something that you think matters. And because ultimately, like, anybody with a creative skill set, right? Whether you are a filmmaker or a designer or a writer or any of these things, you have the power to take something that people should care about and help package it in a way so that they will actually care about it. They will notice it. They will care about it. They will donate money to it if that's what you're trying to do. And so you can take causes that are important to you or anything like that, and you can help make them matter more by packaging them in a way that people will actually, care about them. And so that's the thing that I think is always good to remind folks of. We can spend all our time making videos for another new app or whatever little widget or whatever. But ultimately, like, I don't know, I didn't get into this business to sell apps. I did it to make neat stuff and ideally to help communicate ideas that I think are important. And so you should do that.
Awesome. And that makes sense. I love how you said it, that, it's not about what you can, you didn't get into it to get the Emmys, get into this business to get into it, but it sort of aligned along the way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, I think it sort of works for everybody who has a very good experience and awards for most of the best motion designers and animators out there. And Ankit has a question. He's raised his hand, so I'll come forward, Ankit. You can.
Yeah, thanks, Siddharth. Hi, Kyle. Great presentation. Some of the tips I really loved, and I'm definitely for sure will be using them as well. I had a question related to what is your day like as a technical director, or what are some of the challenges that you face, and maybe if there is any tips or anything that you would like to give in terms of essential graphics and everything.
Yeah. Let's see. A couple questions in there. What does my day like, or what does my day look like is ever changing, I think. I'm in such a weird role right now where I make stuff, but also do a lot of talking about making stuff. And so like right now, I am in the middle of making a bunch of graphics for this live event that happens about a week and a half from now, which is specifically to raise money for children's cancer research. And it's a thing that for the local children's hospital, which did a lot of stuff for me when my kid was little. And so it's a great way to give back. See how this relates directly to what I was just talking about. So right now, like that is 99% of my time for this couple weeks leading into that. But prior to that, I was juggling a couple different client projects, some of it for just selling widgets and stuff I don't care about, but that's what pays the bills, right? And then I am also, doing presentations, both in person and for recorded online stuff, trying to finish this course that I've been working on for a little longer than I would like to. And then to kind of get to the meat of your question there, as what I'm calling a technical director, there are times where folks need something, but they have a team who knows how to use After Effects, but they don't, they've got something where they need to deliver like 500 things, variations of something. And maybe their team doesn't know how to do that in an efficient way. And so whether that is just kind of giving them some consulting and giving them some ideas of workflows that they may not be aware of, a lot of it is building things with essential properties, building them templates, creating expression rigs for them. A lot of that stuff that a lot of people just haven't learned. And I think that's okay because like I have certain strengths and I'm just a more technically minded person. But a thing that I do sometimes is like maybe a studio has several really, really talented designers on their team, designers and animators, but those people don't have the technical mind to like know how to do the thing in a really efficient way. And so they can make the thing look beautiful. And maybe I can come in even just for a day or two and help build them a couple rigs so that they can do their job easier without getting lost in the weeds there. I know there's a question about essential properties in there too. I love them. I use them all the time. I do actually have a little thing about them in this presentation that I opted to skip because I felt like I was going really long, but I can talk about them for a minute if we want. I don't know. We can take a vote. I don't know how many of you are using essential properties already. I think that they absolutely revolutionized the way that I work in After Effects and could do the same for you. I'm such a pitch man. I don't know. Do you want me to take a minute and talk about them? Do you all know about them already?
Yeah, I think we would love to see that.
Yeah, we would love to.
All right, fine. Okay. Make sure. There we go. Looks like my screen's back up. So I'll kind of go light touch on this. I won't go super deep, but if you're not using these, you should be. Okay. Essential properties allow you to edit properties within pre-compositions without having to actually open them. Okay. They allow you to create templates and rigs for either yourself or others, and they allow you to simplify controls and expose only the necessary ones. So if you have done any building of motion graphics templates, or Mogrts, as some of us call them, you can build a template and send it over to Premiere. You can do a lot of that same stuff in After Effects, but even more flexibly. And so you can kind of like make things even easier for yourself just with the way you work. Here's the thing that really takes it next level, and it's that you can create iterations of compositions while still leaving sort of the original composition as it is. And those trying to talk about this with words doesn't really do much. You kind of have to show it. So I'll about to. Yeah, and you can make universal changes. So I have this super beautiful composition here. I'll expose some keyframes, close this one up because that's not on yet. See, like, okay, wow, I built this beautiful little animation here, okay? And let's say that I want to make some changes to this, but this has to live in some other composition to match up with some other things. And, you know, it gets pretty old having to hop back and forth between multiple compositions. So what I'm going to do is right-click and open in Essential Graphics. But of course, pull that out. But of course, if you're doing this a lot, wouldn't you love a hotkey? Well, unfortunately, one does not exist. However, if you go up to keyboard shortcuts, you can just search for it and you can set one like I did, Control-Alt-E. I stole that from something that I wasn't using, but you can set your own, whatever you like. I do a lot of building Mogrts for other people. And so I open the Essential Graphics panel a lot. So there it is. All you have to do is drag whatever properties you want to expose up into the Essential Graphics panel. Okay, so I'm going to grab this on this circle. Let's maybe grab the color. Okay, and on our rectangle, maybe we want to grab the stroke width. And then let's also grab this position property for that circle. And it gives me a warning. Yes, it's keyframed. That's okay. And you know what? I will also grab the source text property of this text layer. If you don't necessarily know what all you're going to be able to add, there is a little thing right here. You can solo supported properties, and it will open up anything that you can add to this panel. All you have to do is drag it up there, or you could right-click on a thing and add property to Essential Graphics. I do have a School of Motion tutorial that goes over some of this stuff too. So the way this works is now you just add this composition to some other composition, like you would do with any pre-comp. We'll go ahead and close Essential Graphics. And now there's an extra little thing on this layer called Essential Properties, which you can see here in the timeline or also in the Properties panel. And obviously, and honestly, this is what's got me using the Properties panel more than anything, because then all my essential properties are there without even having to twirl anything open. And so using either of these, because they're the same controls, I can change the color of this circle right here. And remember, this is a pre-comp. I'm not needing to go back in and change it in here. I could change the stroke width here. And I could say, I love toggle right here and change that text to whatever I want. And this is all pretty cool, right? You may have also noticed those position keyframes came through. So I don't need to go back into this pre-comp to change this animation. I can literally just drag these around right here and maybe even like copy paste these and just add more. You know, you can do whatever you want. As long as you send a property out here, you can change it. You can keyframe these. And that's all pretty cool, right? But here is the thing that really takes it to the next level. I'm going to duplicate this, move this over here, okay? And then on this one that I edited before, I'm going to use this little pull button right here. I'm going to pull the default values back from the original composition just so that you can see this. And now you can see I have two pretty different versions of this thing, but these both point back to the same original composition. There's just this one composition in the project. I didn't have to duplicate that or anything, right? And so if you think about the implications of this, like at a most basic thing, you know, think about making lower thirds or something like that. So you can set it all up in there and then use different versions of it throughout your project. But you can use this in crazy, crazy ways to nest things and just expose the properties that you want to be able to change. You can create like super complex track mat relationships like this, all kinds of wacky stuff. And specifically, you could come back in here and now let's add another thing that, let's just change that to maybe be yellow here, okay? well, greenish, we'll say. So I've added something to this composition, but I did not add it up to essential properties. So it's just there. And now it's universally in all the versions of this. So you can make universal changes like that, or you can feed properties out to make them things that you'll be able to access and edit anywhere else that this appears. By the way, this is mostly useful this feature is mostly useful when you're making templates to send over to Premiere, but it totally works in After Effects too. If you have, say, an image, I'm going to go ahead and just turn off some of this other stuff. And you'll see I've done some super spectacular animation here on this image. So I could take this image and put this entire image layer into my Essential Graphics panel, okay? And so if I were to send this to Premiere, this would be something where the user would be able to replace this image with another image or a video, or, by the way, when you're in Premiere, you could replace it with another timeline. So think about that. But if I go back to my little demo comp, so I turned those other layers off, so that's why you're not seeing any of those other ones. But you'll see that all that animation of the image is right here. But what if I were to take some other image, like these weird rocks that I took a picture of, and on one of these, I wanted to replace my image with that? Well, I just need to make sure I have that selected. And then see, there's a little thumbnail down here in the timeline, or again, over here in the properties panel. I just need to drop some other image onto that, and boop, now it replaces it. So you could build very template-y type things for yourself that live right here in After Effects. And just to kind of like really blow up your brain here at the end, you could actually drop another composition into this thing instead of an image. So there's a real rabbit hole there if you want to just go totally crazy, because you could drop, like, this one isn't really animated too much. This is the thing I did a minute ago. I like all the open mouths there. So you could animate compositions and then drop them into other sort of like template holders that you've built for yourself. So this goes really deep and is as complex as you want it to be.
I think that's the best tip that you've given.
And I see a great comment in here: peak modularity that After Effects can do. And yes, that's why I said this like revolutionizes the way you can work, because I did a lot of sports work earlier in my career, and there was a tremendous amount of like manually duplicating compositions and like having to make duplicates of pre-comps and swap them out and stuff. And man, if this existed, I would have saved myself days.
That sort of brings a question in mind. You've seen most of the, I mean, I think seen is an understatement. You've experienced most of the shift of, the changes that happen in the industry.
I'm old, is what you're saying.
No, that's
yeah.
I don't think so. No, that's not what I'm saying. I mean, what I meant was, you've been there. You've started your career in 2003. So I was, I think I was in 4th grade back then.
Which means I'm old. Yes. I was fresh out of college at that point, to be fair. So.
Oh, nice.
But yes, I see where you're going. I've seen a lot of changes in the software in that time, which, I mean, I think that's part of why I have this very technical understanding of how things work, because like internet video tutorials were not a thing then. Like Video Copilot, for example, that's around, I want to say like 2009, maybe. And that's kind of around the time when like YouTube, very early YouTube was becoming a thing. So, I don't know, prior to that, you had to either learn from books or from other people in the same room as you, or by figuring it out yourself. And so there's a certain amount of like, you start learning not only how things work, but eventually you start kind of gaining an understanding for why things work that way. And that helps sort of with something like the text animator. It just kind of opens up this whole next level of functionality that you can do with it.
Mm-hmm. I think at one point you were telling the AE developers, After Effects developers, how to animate and how to get these things done.
So some of the tips that I just gave, I did just give it a presentation in NAB, and a few of the After Effects team did sit in there. I assume they knew most of these already, but they really like to see how people use these. And I guess this is also a good time to plug, like, the obviously Adobe's a big company, and you know, they're going to do what big companies do. But I will tell you from a lot of personal experience that the After Effects team in particular is very responsive and cares about what people want. That doesn't mean every single request is going to happen, but I have personally seen things that started out as like an offhand comment at a midnight conversation at a conference or something like that. Someone was like, "Oh, I really wish you could something." And one of the After Effects developers would be like, "That's interesting. How would that work?" And it turns into this conversation. And then about 12 months later, I get a message like, "Hey, check this thing out." And that becomes, let me see if I can add here. That becomes this feature right here, which is any effect that references another layer has a drop-down menu that allows you to reference the original source or masks or effects and masks. So if you're referencing another layer, you don't have to pre-compose it a lot of the times, because you can just access those different versions of it right there, which is another efficiency tip. You can use one layer in different ways as it like feeds out to different layers, because you could use the original version and an affected version and yada, yada, yada.
That's really, yeah, I think they're trying to find a lot more ways to be efficient that way. You know, so I kind of wish that, you know, I'm just going to put it out there. I really wish that they had a separate layer for the audio so that I don't have to dig through it. But yeah.
Audio in After Effects isn't great.
Yeah. But I wanted to ask, like, right now, motion design in general is going through a lot of shift in the, I see a lot of shift in the industry. And you know, because Rive is making a huge blast. And I know that School of Motion has a tutorial for Rive. And on LinkedIn and Twitter, I think every other day someone is posting about Rive with some crazy animations. So this is like, I grew up watching Flash animations, and then there is a Rive. So it's, you know, the amount of possibilities is huge. But at the same time, I feel like for anyone who's starting out in the industry, it kind of gets confusing. Like, should I learn After Effects? Should I learn Rive? Should I learn Blender or Cinema 4D? And that sort of, you know, overwhelms a lot of people. So what do you propose? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, did you feel something like that when you started out? Because I think at that time, a lot of apps softwares may have started out as well.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that the current options are equally as overwhelming for people who've been doing this for a long time, because, you know, folks are like, well, do I need to pivot to these new things? And ultimately, like, I think do the things that seem interesting to you and that make you the money that you need to live your life. And whether that is After Effects or Cinema or Unreal or Rive or some other thing that I didn't just mention. And, you know, at a certain point, like, none of us are going to be able to learn all of these things to a meaningful degree. But I will say I've played around with Rive, for example. I think it's really cool and has a lot of possibilities. It seems like something where, like, clients are still kind of figuring out what to do with it. But that said, if you're one of the early folks who has been following it and you can, you know, if you actually know what you're doing in there, once clients are figuring out how to utilize that and what to hire people with those skills, then you're going to be way ahead of the curve. There's definitely some things that are different, but if you have a background in animation, motion design, whatever related discipline already, you're going to be way ahead of a lot of people and you'll pick it up a lot faster. So, you know, I've never I've never had a good answer for this, but there's always been options. There's been a variety of 3D softwares over the years. There's not been a ton of competitors for After Effects per se, which is both good and bad. I think had there been more competition for it along the years, maybe it would have improved in some ways that people want it to. But options are good. I think having competition is going to make Adobe maybe give the After Effects team more resources and do more of what we want it to. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is something I always wrestle with because, as you probably gathered, I am a very technical person. The ability to use these tools to do interesting creative things is really what matters. And I think that you should learn the tools well enough so that they're not in your way. But not everyone is going to dive nearly as far into them as someone like me has. So go as deep as you want. If you want to be that person that knows Blender and Cinema and After Effects and Rive and Unreal and Photoshop and 30 other things, if that works for you and people are giving you money to do those things, awesome. If you just do Cinema 4D all day, every day, and never touch anything else, and that works for you, equally awesome. I think, whatever, there's no one answer that's going to work best for everybody.
Mm-hmm. I think it's more of a specialist and generalist kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryan Summers often says, and I echo this because I think it's to my benefit, but being a generalist is also a specialty.
Oh, yeah. That is, I think he's said that a couple of times, and that it sort of stuck with me because a lot of people will say that they're a generalist when they start out. But, a true generalist, it sort of takes years and years of experience to get there.
It does. And even I would often call myself a generalist because I am a video editor and I do enough design to be dangerous, and I do After Effects, and I could bumble my way through some 3D when I need to and so on. But other people who call themselves a generalist might have a very different skill set than that from a technical standpoint. But I think a lot of it is being able to come into a situation and know how to do something.
So Kyle, I think you're a bit tired from talking a lot.
I mean, I'll go for as long as you want to listen to me.
Oh yeah. Oh, in that case, it could go all day. So I wanted to. Okay, Raz has a question. So come forward, Raz.
Yeah. First of all, I just wanted to say I'm really big fan of you, Kyle. And this is the first time I am so nervous to speak here because you are here. But I actually don't have a question. I just wanted to say hi. And we really miss the things you are doing at School of Motion. Are you guys planning to restart the shows, the spotlight, all of this stuff?
Well, I will say that some of those things stopped happening before I left the staff. You can draw your own conclusions. I thought those things were very cool too, and I really liked being able to highlight folks from all different backgrounds. I will say that, so I obviously have an ongoing relationship with Adobe Live now as part of my motion design hotline thing. So who knows what the future might hold for similar programming. I enjoy doing those. So if there's an appetite for it, I'll see what I can do. To your point, I will say that so I have met pretty much all of the motion design rock stars from going to conferences and stuff. And ultimately, we're all just the same normal, nerdy people. Everyone in this industry is super nice, and there's no reason to be nervous. I remember being nervous, when I met some of these folks too. Something that sticks with me is I think it was last year at NAB. Someone came up to me and said some similar things, and I was like, man, thank you very much. But like Andrew Kramer's right there and Joey is right there. And like Brian Maffett, who's the person whose DVD I learned After Effects from, like he's right over there. Like it's all, this is how this works, you know, like we all learn from each other, and all of like all the folks who are prominent in teaching or being influencers, which is a word I hate, but you know, whatever label you want to put on whatever weird stuff this is that I do. I don't know. We're all just people trying to figure out this stuff too. And some of us happen to be good at talking about it. So, yeah. And I bet, just to kind of take this moment to encourage all of you as well, since you have this regular meetup group that's happening, don't be afraid to give your own presentations, even if it's just a short thing. I've been running a meetup group of my own for like 12 or 13 years, locally based here. And a couple times a year, we do a thing where, you know, anybody can get up and give just like a 5-10 minute presentation. And everyone is terrified to do that. But there's also been some folks that like I pushed and helped them do that. And they became, you know, more confident and more capable. And they ended up like later doing an hour-long presentation for us. And they get more comfortable at doing these things. Unless you're like brand new and you have zero skills in anything, like you probably have more valuable knowledge in your head than you give yourself credit for. And it is intimidating to think about like sharing that with other people. But I promise you, it's, as someone that spent a lot of years taking all of the knowledge in my head for granted, you probably know more than you give yourself credit for. And, you know, not everyone wants to be like a public figure. But I don't know. Like I said, apparently I'm pretty good at talking about After Effects, so I'm happy to let people have me do that.
Mm-hmm. That's
Just
awesome.
to,
I mean, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead,
Go
Raj.
on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I
Raj.
was just trying to say that, just to add in that, how do you, so like you were super popular in like motion design industry. So how do you like connect to like a lot of people? Like I try to cold reach out to like a lot of people, and like not a lot of people actually do like reply on Instagram or email.
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
Yeah, that can be tricky. Obviously, folks are often busy, and I do think, you know, especially once you become a little bit of a public figure, you get a lot of requests from people. I think the biggest thing is to, I think Joey has some good stuff about this in his Freelance Manifesto book too, which I do recommend. Like, if you're going to reach out to someone for the first time, don't ask them anything. Don't ask them to do anything for you, because then you're kind of like putting an obligation on them. And a lot of folks do have a lot going on. I definitely do. I try to respond to things, but also, you know, if I just get a message from someone that's like, "Hey, what's up?" I'm like, I don't really know you. So like, what do you need something? Or, you know, like bring something to the table, but don't, I don't know, you know, don't have your first interaction with someone being like, "Hey, can you review my demo reel?" or something, because then you're kind of like putting an obligation on them. I'm a people pleaser, and so I probably respond to more of those than I maybe should sometimes when I have the time. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have a great answer for it, but ultimately, I will say, from meeting a lot of folks, especially at conferences, being able to do it in person is definitely better. And obviously, I have a big luxury being based in the US, where most of these conferences happen. But if you can be a human being first and not, you know, like, "Hello, I am here to do business networking." Nobody wants that. But if you're just hanging out with people and you start chit-chatting, like I've gotten tons of work from people that I just met and hung out with, and you know, we shared a beer or something like that. It's everyone just wants to work with, talk to, hang out with, whatever, people that they like. So be likable, be nice, be yourself above all else.
That
Is that an answer? I don't know.
Yeah, that was perfect. I mean, that just reminded me of another quote by Ryan Summers. I think he's got a lot of good quotes coming.
He does, and he talks a lot too, so that helps.
Yeah. He once said, I think it was him. He said that don't build don't be networking, because networking is such an ugly word. Instead, build relationships.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that sort of circling back, just that sort of emphasizes on everything what you just said.
Yeah, that was a much more concise way to say what I just rambled through. And honestly, I may have inadvertently been stealing that from him.
Rishabh has a question. Go ahead, Rishabh. I mean, he's raised his hand.
Yeah, thanks so much, Vishal. Hi, Kyle. Firstly, thanks so much for connecting with all of us here. It's really like a pleasure for us to connect with you. So as you mentioned that you are having multiple, like you're doing your hotline stuff there, and you're also doing some things with Adobe, right? And you're also working with your clients, right? As you just mentioned that you're working with some like NGO thing for the cancer project thing, right? So how do you like manage your whole day, including your personal time, and like how do you handle that pressure? And second question to it, how do you maintain yourself calm and energetic so that you can still be so like when I've seen you throughout the live session right now, you are so energetic that gives us energy to ourselves as well. Like I can feel that vibe with you. So
Yeah.
how do you like maintain that thing throughout the day or throughout your like normal routine?
Yeah. I mean, if I ever figure it out, I'll let you know. I kind of just, I don't know. I just take it as it comes. I definitely do a lot of kind of juggling all the time. There was a time last week where, I mean, it just sort of worked out this way, but I realized by like 10:30 a.m. I had actually turned in updates to 5 different projects already that morning. They were all small updates, but I was like, that's a pretty cool little juggle. I think a lot of it is just, years of experience of dealing with stuff, and a lot of freelance is learning how to kind of slot things in and prioritize. So you kind of know like, well, this thing, I've got this thing that I can work on right now, but it's not due till here. And I've got this thing that I can work on here, and it's due here. So like, I'm going to prioritize that. And maybe I have something else with a shorter deadline, but I have some hold there. So like, while I would love to be doing that, I can't because I have to wait for the thing. But I can send the email and say, hey, can you hurry up and give me that thing so that we can make our deadline? A lot of prioritization, I guess. And to your question about energy, honestly, I don't know. I will tell you that giving presentations, this won't be quite the same, but like giving live presentations, you definitely do have an energy, and particularly when you're in a live room with people. And it's surprisingly exhausting to do, like being on to, I don't know, this is much more organic, so it's not nearly as draining. But like when you're giving a focused presentation and you're kind of like trying to make sure that you get all the information in within that 55 minutes that you have or whatever, afterwards you just kind of like, and you need to recharge a little bit. But I don't know, you just kind of learn from experience. I do have a little bit of a theater background, so I kind of got some of those, picked up some of those skills, which at the time didn't seem super valuable, but turned out to be quite valuable and helped me with knowing how like live events should run and stuff in a variety of ways too. So, which is maybe I'll do one more short monologue here. I feel like I've gone on several, but whatever your background is that brought you into this weird umbrella that is motion design and VFX and content creation, and we can't even come up with one label for the stuff that we do, right? Whatever your background is, probably has a lot of value and influences the way that you approach all of this stuff. And so just make sure that you try to use that. Like, even if it's an unrelated field, maybe that's kind of what led you here, because you have a more technical mind, or you have a very curious sort of mind, or something like that. And you might be surprised how whatever you did before you landed here ends up, you may not even see it until, years later in retrospect, but you start realizing like, that's how I got here. Weird.
Right. But it's like, it's interesting to know that you are from theater background. We didn't knew so far.
But I think it shows. I think this is one of the most entertaining and interesting toggle sessions we've had.
Well, thanks.
But yeah,
I definitely try to make any presentation I'm doing, I try to make it entertaining for me. So hopefully that rubs off on the audience too.
Yeah, it definitely does. And next,
thank you so much for spending your time with us and giving the answer to my question.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Next we have Gautam. Come forward, Gautam.
Hi, Kyle.
Hi.
Thanks for the session anyway. Like, I have a request actually. Several people from Adobe, right? So like, I've been struggling with this issue. There are some effects, not good in 32-bit actually, like hard grain, CC composite. These effects don't work with 32-bit. Like, maybe ask them to find a solution. That's it.
So I missed a couple of the words in the middle there. CC composite does what?
So like, see some of the effects actually, like maybe hard grain, CC composite. There are a few actually. It doesn't work with 32-bit compositions actually.
Okay. Yeah. That's the thing with a lot of folks. I will say, if you haven't before, if you go up to your help menu in After Effects and provide feedback, or online user forums, they take you to the same place now. Obviously not everything is going to get seen, but you can specifically make like feature requests, and if you write it out well and make sure that you add sort of appropriate use cases and stuff, there is sort of an upvoting system there. And again, not everything's going to get prioritized, but if you have a feature that a lot of other people also want, and you can get like other folks to upvote that helps the After Effects team be able to say, look, a lot of people want this, and then they can help prioritize that internally. So kind of the better you are at asking for things, the better your odds of it getting the thing, becoming a thing. Of course, some things like, something like certain effects working for 32-bit, that may require a lot more work than some other request. But from working with the team quite a bit over years, I definitely see that. Like, a lot of times they would love to fix that thing too, but obviously they have priorities that they have to juggle just like everything else. And being able to point to this thing and say, look, thousands of people want this feature. Can we do it? Yes, great.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Guys, so we are well over the hour mark. And like, I didn't know that until I just checked it out. So check the time. So
pretty typical of me.
No, but I think, usually it goes around the hour mark. Everybody's pretty tired, and like, a lot of people leave. But I think we have one of the most attendance in our toggle session right now. I think I counted 46 people. So people would love to hear more. But I mean, I want to talk a little about F9 right now. I know that I've talked a lot about it to you, and and it's I'm fairly certain you're tired of hearing all that. So but we have a lot of members who are not in F9 as well right now, who joined through Instagram. So just wanted to, F9, like we already told that we started 3 years ago, and this is our third year, and we've been pushing forward. So one of the biggest things that we are trying to sort of improve in motion designers life, I think, or in career, is the whole rates thing. Because even last month I had a conversation with a freelancer, and the kind of rates that she had brought forward was actually a bit too less, that I had to convince her to bring it up. So one thing is that. Another is that India and F9 isn't just in India. It's we have people from Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and Spain, and you're here, so US. So so in India, one of the biggest things is that, as you may know, that prior to this meeting, like with the meeting with admins prior to officially starting, I had mentioned we have Bollywood, our cinematic culture here is we have several, like Bollywood, Collywood, Tollywood, like, and Mollywood, like it's several. So similarly, motion design as well has India has a lot to offer, because I mean, there are places in India where every 2 kilometers you go, you'll find a new language. It's that it's that crazy. And even my language at some places, I speak Malayalam. So even when I go to one certain part of the district, I won't be able to understand because of how different it is, and the culture there is completely different as well from where I'm from in Kerala. So, and this is throughout India. So I feel like just like the movie and cinema industry, each culture affecting the cinema. So each of them have their own visual aesthetic and storytelling style. India has a lot of similar things to offer motion design in general. So our aim in F9 is to uplift our, to have more cultural influence and uplift more artists to provide, to come up with their own forms of, aesthetics and styles of storytelling, so that, it's like we have corporate Memphis, which is a style which I think everybody's tired of seeing it everywhere. But we have we have a potpourri of cultures, different cultures. So I'm very excited to see what kind of different style comes out in the future. So that's what we are trying to do in F9. And a lot of times we never had a proper conference or festival before, until AGIF, Animators Guild India Fest, did it 2 years back in Mumbai. Now the biggest problem in India is it's a huge country. So if you hold it in one part of the country, unless the festival or conference is big enough, people are not going to show up. So AGIF did a wonderful job, and that's a lot of people came, and that's when me personally, I only knew a few people from F9 itself, and that's when I met a lot of people. I met Athar for the first time. He was he was from Mumbai, and he sort of showed us around the city, and so it's kind of a huge thing. So if we are to have a conference or festival, we certainly will be holding something huge, and we would love to have you as a guest as well.
I mean, I'd love to come if it happens. Yeah. And that'd be great. Like, if there's, I'm not necessarily connected to these folks, but, if there's any way to connect something like that to Adobe or Maxon or whatever, like, I'd be happy to try to do whatever power I have to help make that happen.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That means a lot. I think a lot of people are jumping. I'm jumping up and down inside. So that is a huge, thank you very much for that. I mean, the amount of, you've already contributed a lot to our community right now. So thank you very much for this. And I know it's very well past the hour mark. So if you want to, if anyone has anything else, last minute questions or anything, you want to, just, I don't know, come forward and say something, feel free to do so. I think that must be it then.
We answered all possible questions that anyone might have.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain there's going to be a lot more soon.
Good. Well, I will say in general, I know some of you folks have probably already connected with me on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me on social media. I am generally pretty responsive. Probably not a whole lot in the next couple of weeks because I'll be very busy, but feel free to keep in touch with me. I like connecting with people and seeing what people are doing, in all different contexts. So yeah, feel free to be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kyle. And I think that we can wind up for the day. It's it was wonderful having you here, and getting pretty much everyone met one of their idols. So like pretty much everyone met their idol. So it's a huge thing for us. So thank you very much for having us here. And if you have any if you want to reach out to any of us to sort of I don't know. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I am fairly certain that most of us, like everybody here, are amateurs and still in the figuring out what's in the industry. So
that gives you a lot of power to help decide what it is going to be. And so again, thanks for having me. But and thanks for all the kind words from all of you. It is very much appreciated, even if I make a bunch of self-deprecating jokes. But like taking the initiative to put together groups like this and organize these things and even just show up, like that is effort that is helping build a community. And, as I kind of said at the beginning, like I live in the US, but like the US is also a really big country physically. And if I were to make my own conference in Kansas City, like I'd have to work hard to get people to come here. So I definitely understand exactly that thing. All of the online communities that exist now, it's such a great way to be able. Well, obviously it's not the same as in person, but it's a great way to build up that stuff. And then when you do meet somebody in person, like you're already friends, and that's really cool. So I have really loved seeing this seed of an idea that you had a couple of years ago, and you guys have made it into something, and that's really awesome. So I hope to see all this continue, and I hope all of you that have been watching like help take that concept and do what you can to help contribute to the community. Answer people's questions when you see them on the Slack, which I am on, by the way. I'm probably mostly lurking, but be helpful, because when you give your time to other people, it does tend to work itself out. I feel like that's maybe if I wanted to sum whatever my career is in one thing, like be generous with your time for things that you feel are important. Of course, everything, in reason, but be generous with your time, and it will give itself back eventually in some form or another, even if you don't know what that's going to be yet.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Thank you again for that wise words, for those wise words. And I think we will wind up. I honestly don't know how to wind up. Yeah, that's
just like this. Just shut it down.
Yeah.
Or we can all start like, I don't know. We can all sit here awkwardly, silently until it ends. Yeah. I don't know. Whatever you want.
Yeah.
I think I would just end this with just giving a lot of credit to the core team, Vishal, Amin, Rishabh, Bhatia. Like they keep pushing this a lot. Like they are doing a lot for F9 and this community. So like really thank you to you guys and for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks a lot, F9. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I think, I'm just going to shut it down.
You guys, bye.
Cool.
Bye.
Thanks everybody for showing up and listening.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Have a great day.
Good. Thanks, everybody.